Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth Alpha and the first pass look at the Restoration Shaman. So we're finally here, finally doing Shamans, right? I can hear the YouTube comments being typed right now. Finally, he's at Shamans. Why did you do Shamans so late? Well, I usually do this class that I made later on in these cycles because you see it when I'm doing islands or when I was doing a whole bunch of leveling, so it just happens. I usually push my spec back a little more. We still have DKs of rogues on the horizon though, so sit tight. It takes a while to get through 36 specs. But anyway, the Restoration Shaman. I was testing this spec on one build. And of course the VOD will be right here on YouTube for archiving purposes later, or if you didn't watch it live. But after we finished, right at the very end, a new build came up. And there was a lot of contentious discussion at the very end of that build. And then the problem that a lot of the discussion was about was fixed in that build. So mostly, almost mostly. And of course we'll go over that big change in this video. But if it's your first time on the YouTube channel, you can go hit that red subscribe button down there to be up to date on all the first pass, second pass, islands, warfronts, all the coverage, discussion videos, live shows that are coming back soon, all that stuff right here on YouTube. Or check the video description box down below for my Twitter, my socials, and of course the actual Twitch live stream that all of the live testing does occur on. If you want to be a part of all of that, there'll be a bit more of a format for the second pass where we're going to be really locked in on what has changed, very specific. And each of those videos, these discussion videos for the first pass, are kind of just off the cuff. I have goals to talk about, but the second pass will be a little more fine-tuned. So go check all those out down below. But Restoration Shaman. I've been playing Shaman for 10 years, 11 years? Since Burning Crusade? I don't know how long that is. A long time, over a decade. And there's always been these interesting back and forth periods of Shaman, either being, depending on which DPS spec or where Restoration falls in, too powerful or too weak or mandatory or forget about it, or the glory days of Fire Nova on enhancement. Of course, we'll talk about that in the enhancement video. But overall, Restoration Shaman has been one of the most solid kit-built Shaman in a very long number of expansions. And that, I don't regret to inform you, but say it with a bit of a heavy heart, has been cut down slightly. The Restoration Shaman has lost part of its toolkit. Most notably, as you may have remembered from Legion right now, Gust of Wind, gone. For Elemental and for Restoration, it's just gone. But the key thing that Resto has lost is just cooldown stacking capabilities. However, honestly, it's not going to change a lot because of how the game is changing in battle. But Tidal Waves remains as it is on live, 30% towards healing wave reduction cast, or 40% towards the crit of your healing surges, 2 stacks. And of course you gain those stacks from casting a Riptide or casting a chain heal. That is still very much how you'll gain the synergy with Tidal Waves. That has not changed. All the same right there. Resurgence remains the same. So it's the 1% from Healing Wave, or the 0.6% of your max mana from Healing Surge or Riptides, or the 0.25% per chain heal crit on the entire bounce. I have Undulation talented right now, so don't worry about that shininess. Reincarnation has not been affected and changed. Unfortunately, you still need 20% HP and mana self-res, which means if you onk at the wrong time, you die. We all know we've done it. Don't even lie about it. You know you've done it. I've done it on stream. In Mastery remains Deep Healing, which increases the healing from your spells by an amount based on the current HP of the target being healed. The lower the health targets, they're healed for more. So if a target is at full health, like I am right now, you are seeing the effects of 0 Mastery. And then if a target is at 0.1% health, you'll basically have 99.9% of whatever your Mastery stat would be weaved in there. That's how the Mastery works, right? It's all just flat. Oh gosh, dinosaur next to me. It is all completely flat in that regard. Lower the health, more healing. Always really strong on progression, never really that strong on farm. I wonder if the Mastery should be tweaked a little bit to be sort of like Destruction Warlock, where you get a little bit of it all the time, and then you have the scaling teeter-totter, I guess, but it's almost one of the best masteries in the game, period, for any healer. So I wouldn't even bring it up because then they'll just nerf the crap out of it and it'll be some dumb like water globules. You don't want that. And Lava Surge, of course, remains here, where your Flame Shock has 20% chance to reset the remaining cooldown of Lava Burst. So you get that DPS component right there. So that's all the same. Wind Shear, you still have a ranged interrupt. No other healer has that still. Granted, now Mistweavers have their baseline stun. And there are some other big new parts of the toolkit. And when I get into the whole that you've lost parts of the toolkit, that's okay. Considering that Tremor Totem comes back. So you can actually Tremor again. And it's Fear, Charm, Sleep effects within your party red members within 30 yards of like the aura that the totem lives off. And only has 5, it says 5 health. It has 10% of your health. There's a bug right now, or something's not working right with totem health on the alpha, where some totems have a ton of health and some have none. And other totems have your entire HP pool, which that one is supposed to, but other ones aren't. So hopefully they'll fix that in the coming builds and sort of minimize the confusion between which totems have HP or not. Tremor cannot be cast while feared, charmed, or slept. You have to pre-tremor. However, there is no weird pulsing duration. I did a bunch of testing. You can see this in the VOD where I am spam feared. The fear ticks for not even like half a second or up to half a second before it's immediately cleansed. So it is cleansed right off instantly, nearly. So there's no like pulse of the old Tremor Totem. It just comes right off. Water Walking, of course, still being here. Spirit Walker's Grace returns to the 2-minute cooldown, 15-second duration. SLT, unchanged. Riptide, unchanged. Again, I have Echo of the Elements talented right now. Don't look at the charges. So Riptide, that's fine. Purify Spirit, of course, still here. Purge, still here. Purge went up in mana cost, I think. The relationship of mana from one expansion to the next. So Purge is quite expensive, but most effects normally are expensive, right? Lightning Bolt remains unchanged. Lava Burst unchanged. Hex still has the cooldown, still works on beasts and humanoids. The weird part about Hex, comparing it to, if you just watch any of the Druid videos, they have Hibernate now. Hex and Hibernate are kind of similar in that regard, but Hex just breaks on damage because it's a sheep and only works on humanoids and beasts, but it has the cooldown, whereas Hibernate can be spammed on Dragonkin and beasts with no cooldown. That's why I brought that up as a weird point, but I don't know why it's like that. Chain Heal, Healing Wave, these are all unchanged from the baseline. Healing Stream Totem, of course, still has the only will heal one person every tick, and of course the ticks do scale faster with your haste. Healing Rain, same thing you're used to on live right now. Drop that wet puddle. Get down there. Yeah. Ghost Wolf remains unchanged. 30% movement speed in Ghost Puppy. Can't be reduced below 100. Flame Shock. Farsight. Earthbind Totem. Again, ignore the talents that you might be getting excited about. Chain Lightning. Chain Heal. All good. Also returning to the kit baseline is Capacitor Totem, or Lightning Surge Totem, whatever the heck they wanted to call it. So baseline for all shamans now, just like Shadow Fury is for warlocks, minute-long cooldown, 2-second stun within the 8-yard or 2-second activation time of the 3-second stun within the 8-yard activation radius. So 2 new totems, again, Tremor and Cap Totem baseline. No more needing to just set and forget that talent. You'll just have it, which is a huge improvement and a big change to the way the stun and the CC meta work. So Resto Shaman, all shamans, have an AoE slow and an AoE stun, which is a lot of utility considering some specs now don't even have either. Or both. They just don't have them. Bloodlust, aka Heroism, not changed. Astral Shift still remains the 40% DR for 8 on the 90-second cooldown, one of the weakest DRs in the game across the Shaman class. However, our toolkit's getting bumped up a little bit in the survivability category. Restoration Shaman never really had a big problem with that. Mostly Elemental and Enhancement did. Astral Recall is still your extra Hearthstone, your AoE res, single target res, everything else is the same. So, on the hotbar now, you might be seeing a couple things that are missing. One major thing now you'll see in the spellbook that's missing. Ancestral Guidance was what I was alluding to earlier. It has been poofed. It is gone. AG was powerful. You cannot argue with me on that one. And normally you would just AG into an Ascendance or AG into like a Cloudburst when you're storing a bunch of healing into the Cloudburst Totem or whatever. I get it. And it disproportionately gave Resto Shaman too many cooldowns. The fact that they gave you Tremor back, well, gave us Cap Totem back, baseline. You still have Healing Tide Totem. You still have a self-res, which is utility. It's not a defensive, it's utility. And of course, you still have Spirit Link Totem. And as you see right here, you still have Ancestral Protection Totem. This didn't get gutted or removed. This is Ankh Totem, which had a lot of feelings about it across the board in Legion, where it could be abused or not abused, or yeah, we'll see. But APT is still here. Still have Talentable Windrush. Earthen Wall Totem is still the Earthen Shield Totem as it is on live, except the Earthen Wall Totem now, I'll talent over to that. We're talking about totems that are the same and or changed a little bit. Now has your HP, and it can only redirect as much damage into the absorb as the HP of the totem, which is your total HP. So slight nerf to Earthen Wall, even though it still has a minute-long cooldown. It's basically Shaman Devo Aura, because it's an absorb that hits the entire group that can stack with 5, 20, 40 people, whatever, right? Earthen Wall Totem, still very potentially powerful. And of course, you have Ancestral Vigor, still remains here with your 10% HP amp, still here. Windrush Totem, again, is the AoE speed boost, sort of the Shaman roar, as it were. Graceful Spirit remains here. They did just nerf Graceful Spirit in the last build. It only reduces the cooldown of Spirit Walker's Grace by a minute and the movement speed while in it by 20%. There was a amp for movement speed in puppy form, but they took that out. There was a 10% extra amp, but again, they took that out. And then as you see next to this may be an old returning favorite or not, Nature's Guardian. When you fall below 35% health, you'll be instantly healed for 20% of your max HP. And of course, this works with Ancestral Vigor, right? Or the extra HP that APT gives you when it's effective active. And it can occur once every 45 seconds. And I have a little image to throw up on stream real quick here. So yes, it does save you from dying. It is coded to be Shaman Cheat Death. You see how I take a hit that overkilled me, which procced Nature's Guardian. Now, if that follow-up attack, that was just, of course, in the training dummy, because it attacks twice in a row, like within a second, right? The melee hit, the Uber Strike special attack. If that special attack would have killed me, I would have still died. But I lived like 1,000 HP right there, right? So it does save you from one-hits. Or if you're low for that long, and then, of course, if you fall back below the 35% health, and then the next hit would have killed you, and then the 45-second window came up, it'll save your life. Otherwise, it just keeps you, topped up, sort of. Just because people were worried if that didn't work right properly, and if you were overkilled, you just popped. But no. Obviously, uber damage will kill you. So uber damage or massive damage is 2 times your health. Then you just die. So that'll still happen. I don't think Nature's Guardian will save you from that, but it's hard to test against just this train dummy, right? So overall, and we'll keep going on the whole toolkit thing here, Static Charge is a new talent that reduces the cooldown of Cap Totem by 5 seconds for each enemy it stuns, up to a maximum of 20 seconds. So you can get a 40-second stun if you're hitting, hit at least 4 targets. But you hit these 4 targets right here, and you'll see the cooldown go whoop, right down minus 40 or down minus 20 to the 40-second cooldown right there. It was 38 because of the tick rate, but so you can have more stun. You still have Earth Grab, which is Super Root Totem, which is the Super Earth Bind. Essentially, it will root everything in the pulse, and if things walk into the radius, of course, they'll be rooted. Once the root breaks, they'll still be slowed. And then Spirit Wolf is from your artifact weapon. All shamans can get this, where you go into Ghost Wolf form, you get a 5% stacking speed increase and a 5% stacking DR every 1 second after the global for 4 stacks. So I'll pop this up right here. You'll watch if I go in, it doesn't pop immediately, but after the global ends, the DR and the movement speed start stacking. There it is. So going into Ghost Wolf and staying in there, it stays up forever. 20% movement speed, and 20% DR. So this, for all Shaman, obviously screams PvP, or any encounter you get to move around in Ghost Wolf form, just on the move. I think this would be a guaranteed lock-in. Think of fights like Agrimar, Coven, etc. Even if you're only in for a few seconds, the additional movement speed will obviously kick in, but then you'll take a little less damage. Or there is the possibility of shifting into Ghost Wolf form, you know, as an ability is about to cast, like a big Crackle style ability or a big AoE or whatever like that, right? Big ability in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, snaps on you, 20% DR out of Ghost Wolf form. And the rest of Shaman, you can have down your heals, you can have down an HTT, you can have down a Healing Stream Totem, and then just go into Ghost Wolf form, right? You have all this healing going on. You can then make sure you survive an ability hit or reduce a dot ticking on you or whatever, and then shift back out. For Elemental and Enhancement, obviously it only come into play if we're moving because of mechanics or whatnot, or again, PvP. Because I'm not going to sit in Ghost Wolf form and auto-attack, bite, and lose damage, depending on the encounter. But so the overall toolkit, you may have lost AG, but look at all the stuff you gained. I'm not even done yet, right? I'm not even done. Let's keep going. So Earth Shield returns. Excuse me. Earth Shield's also just changed in the recent build. It increases the healing you do to the target by 10%. So they put this scaling back in, the 10% healing amp that you're all used to. But they reduce the actual healing quite substantially of the ticks of the Earth Shield that happen, which for Enhancement and Elemental, as we all have Earth Shield, it actually is really bad. So I wonder if they're going to tweak the Earth Shield heal to be less for Resto and more for Elemental and Enhancement, because if we heal ourselves, the 10% amp isn't great because our healing is not very strong. We wanted the actual tick heal to be what helped us. With the amount of they cut down in the recent build, it takes a full mana bar of heals, like 4 or 5 surges, to equal what the healing orbs would have done if we just took damage anyway. But again, Earth Shield for Resto Shaman means you put this on the tank, get 10% more healing on them all the time. Of course, that will stack with your mastery in that regard. That all works together. Doesn't work on these dummies because they're constantly taking damage, but the hits don't register on Earth Shield for some reason. They just take low HP. But of course, you'll still gain 10%. Deluge remains here, where it's your chain heals for an additional 20% on targets within your healing range or affected by your Riptide. Obviously has a good synergy with High Tide down there. Crashing Waves was changed. So Crashing Waves usually gave you the Riptide equals 2 stacks of Tidal Waves. That was removed. Now it just gives you a 10% amp. It's a additive bonus on the Tidal Waves effect. So it goes from 30 and 40 to 40 and 50. So this tier is kind of competitive. I feel like in AoE situations, obviously Deluge does win out. Crashing Waves might be more of a bursty single target kind of a PvP talent, but again, you can't stack it as fast. Of course, you can with Echo of the Elements. Earth Shield becomes very tank heal oriented. It also has potential survivability in, like, you know, islands or personal PvP. Right? So again, it works. Torrent is unchanged. Undulation is unchanged. Unleash Life are all unchanged that we found. Again, coefficients behind the scenes that are just the scaling of spells can be changed, but it's all relative to the expansion we're in, right? It doesn't matter. But this tier always comes down to, I like playing with Undulation normally, just because I think that third heal on someone in a Riptide window, mostly using on Healing Surge, really helps the value of Surge, because a crit surge kind of counteracts your mastery, depending on the HP portion of the people that you're healing, because obviously, again, your mastery doesn't heal very much if they're not really low. So if they're mid-health or high-health, but you get that crit surge that feels really good, toss them right off. Unleash Life has its uses. There are people out there that enjoy it. I think Unleash Life also gets a huge buff because of Earth Shield. Right? Undulation, you're not always going to be only healing with waves or surges, whereas Undulation will definitely be able to work that you can use this in the window on the Earth Shield target in your 5-man dungeon, but you chain heal off that target to bigger tank heal, but then you still get the chain heal going out to everyone else. So there's still possibility for Unleash Life to see it's in there. The direct heal would amped by Earth Shield too, but, you know, we'll see. And outside of that, we have Echo of the Elements remains unchanged. That's totally fine. Still has the 2 charges of HST, Lava Burst, and the cooldown, resets give you a charge. Or it has the chance when you use Tidal Waves to give you the charge of Riptide back, so that kind of goes back and forth. A new talent that just came in the new build was Downpour. This replaces Healing Rain, and for all intents and purposes, it is essentially your artifact weapon Big Bubble Burst. It's a burst Healing Rain versus the Healing Rain that just sits on the ground and only heals a couple people every time it ticks, right? So the cooldown, however, is increased by 5 seconds each time a target is healed. So this is to keep it from scaling out of control and being able to be spammed in AoE situations. Downpour is. So if you're only healing a few people, you can downpour more often. This gives you more island and group, like dungeon group synergy. But obviously, it scales proportionally that if you're going to splash heal 20 people in your mythic raid, it'll have a longer cooldown because, again, it's a instant heal. After the cast time, it's just that smack instant heal, right? It doesn't give you a cooldown if it's has to be effectively healed. So if you are healing 20 people in your raid and it only effectively heals like half of them, the cooldown only goes up for half. So it's utilized, there's some overhealing protection behind it. Obviously, it'll always work on these dummies because they're taking tons of damage, so it gives me 20-second cooldown on top of that. But overall, Downpour feels fine. It just changes up the playstyle a little bit. What also changes up the playstyle a little bit is Cloudburst Totem. Cloudburst Totem replaces Healing Stream Totem, which there was a lot of contentious negative feedback about this when it first happened. The issue you're going to see in the VOD when we're talking about CBT is that it only worked on effective healing, which was terrible, but don't worry, that's been removed. So it still lasts for 15 seconds. It absorbs what is essentially 25% of all healing to injured allies within 40 yards of the healing done. And then when it is triggered, either destroyed by re-clicking the button, or when it naturally expires, it will meteor that healing out to everyone else. So it still functions the exact same way you are used to. And it will store all healing. When it was effective healing only, it felt really awful. So you can still do other ways to game this. Of course, you can get Ascendance into it. You can have different totems going, all that kind of stuff. So that splashed out for... Didn't really put a lot into it. But yeah, there you go. 2,000 plus per target. And it has a 30-second cooldown still. So you get to use it, pop it within 15, and then it has 15-second cooldown, essentially. But that has been fixed a little bit. The fact that it replaces Healing Stream Totem was a bit of the skill cap change, right? Using Cloudburst Totem properly is the skill cap. But they gave you back the overhealing component because the whole point of Cloudburst Totem was that you have that crackle ability coming in 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 12 seconds. When it was effective healing, you can imagine that you can pop down your Cloudburst Totem, but you can't put any healing into it. Now, you can still do that, and you can still have a bunch of healing stored up into your Cloudburst Totem, and then it pops the second after the big AoE goes out, right? The shield exploded, the 2 ads exploding on Mythic Agrabah or whatever, right? Or the dot going. That kind of stuff you can still do. Without that, it was a dead talent. It was like an HPS loss. So that is still able to be done. Losing and changing from Healing Stream Totem to Cloudburst is because it's a stronger heal, way stronger than Healing Stream Totem. Healing Stream Totem only heals like one person every, 1-ish seconds. So that's a bit of a weird change, but overall still fine. Because you can do, like, this... I talked about this on stream, and it didn't look very convincing. It might have to be more targets, right? So, Wellspring still existing. You can do the whole Wellspring to heal lots of people, to store a bunch of healing into Cloudburst Totem. Or you can just take Downpour and do like a Downpour Wellspring burst, right? I don't know why certain angles don't render the Wellspring tidal wave that comes out from you, but I try to find reasons to make Wellspring useful. It still doesn't feel very good. It still feels the weakest talent in the entire toolkit. I had a suggestion that maybe it should leave like a second or two of your Riptide tick on all targets affected, or it should be able to always be cast while moving. But, I mean, Downpour obviously has a rotational single target burst heal. Echo has both a DPS and a healing potential because of Riptide stacking. And again, Crashing Wave, Riptide feels really good. And Cloudburst Totem, Wellspring maybe. But overall, High Tide still being here just makes Cloudburst Totem all that more powerful because your Chain Healed loses less healing per bounce and heals 5 people. So I don't know, because you have to hard cast a lot more Chain Heals, but again, you get so much healing stored into your Chain Heal. You can, of course, still have your Healing Rain down during this, taking on people during that to store up to... I don't know, right? Wellspring, what are you doing? Because Ascendance is unchanged, still here as an awesome healing cooldown. You can't stack it with AG anymore, but of course you can stack it with Cloudburst, as you normally would have. So that still gives the Restoration Shaman that really good toolkit regardless. You can still take APT, Cloudburst, Earthen Wall. You still get Healing Tide Totem. You still have Spirit Lake. You can still take Ascendance. You'll still have 4 or 5 major cooldowns that other healers only have 1 or 2. And they're all in varying degrees of power. None of the none of the Resto Shaman, I'm talking about AG, and they took away AG from Elemental and Enhancement recently for some reason. None of the cooldowns individually, arguably, obviously, Spirit Link Totem is, but usually only gets coupled with like a Devo or a Darkness, then it becomes woo. But none of these cooldowns are as powerful as like one major cooldown that comes to mind now with the Holy Priest with a new Holy Word Salvate, or Sanctuary rather, Sanctuary. That's hilariously good, right? But that's to be a big boost for Holy Priests, right? You still have so many rotational cooldowns you can bring into play as a Restoration Shaman. I mean, this is like 5. Cloudburst are mini revivals if done properly. So Ascendance is fantastic for 5-man and raids. And again, stacking in raids with Ascendance going off and your Healing Tide Totem and your Cloudburst Totem, all this madness going off, you can do really a lot of good healing. So I ramble at the end here because people were really mad about the loss of AG and the change to Cloudburst being this huge cut to Resto. But they gave you back things when they took a couple away, so in different ways. I think it's no problem with it. I've healed a lot on Restoration. It still feels totally fine. Except, Wellspring, what are you doing here? Right? Having a cheat death, essentially, is ridiculous. Having an extra DR is ridiculous. Having Earth Shield back is really neat. So, take it for what it is. Learn the new way that Cloudburst Totem works, quote-unquote. Barely any different, honestly. And go for it. That is the Restoration Shaman. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the way the Resto Shaman will be healing, if you'll be playing on a Resto Shaman in the future or not. Whoop, do all this. Yes, all the healing. There are some interactions with Cloudburst Totem that I'm not sure how they work yet. We were trying to do some tests for Cloudburst on the best ways to scale healing into it. But again, comments down below. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel and want to be up to date on all the first pass, second pass, all the testing to come in the future. Check out the video description box down below for links to my social media and, of course, my Twitch live stream to actually watch these and be a part of the testing live. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next first pass video during the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Elemental Shaman and then Enhancement Shaman are up next.